you've forgotten the red foam screen from the last time, do you remember?
I do.
I thought you'd never forget that.
I do recall it, actually. Where is it?
Well, I didn't want to.
To make it look like a sort of mic from an 80s pop video, it was rather a nice look. But, it's really such an exquisite joy and privilege and honor to share space in this way with you all. Each time such a meeting commences, there's a feeling of overwhelm, because it really is such a delight to be able to explore experience and reality and truth and love with you all. There's not much more important than that. What I want to speak about, it's also lovely to see so many familiar faces as well. I think some of you were here last year, and some of you I've met recently as well. I'm not such a stranger in Tennessee as I was when I first got here. Though my accent is still just as strange as it was the last time I was here.
You don't think we have strange accents?
I love your strange accents. I thought they were just on TV. I have an English-Australian accent mix, and for the first 8 years that I was living in Australia, it was just English. People would say to me, "Where in England are you from?" And if they said, "Where are you from?" and I said, "England," they said, "Yeah, where?" As if this was a stupid clarification. But after about 8 years, I found myself in Denver, and I asked the taxi driver, I didn't say anything more than First and 16th or corner of, something like this, and she said, "Oh, where in Australia are you from?" And I thought, darn it, that's it, it's gone. I've lost the English accent, I've now got an inferior Australian English mix. And I don't know what's going to happen after all this travel, after all the years. I may have a bit of Californian in there, a bit of Kiwi, and who knows what else, but I feel really at home here. I feel at home wherever I am, but there's something very welcoming about this environment in particular, so Stephen and Susan have done rather a wonderful job. I want to speak about finding the divinity in our humanity. Finding the divinity in our humanity. When we talk about awakening and God realization and enlightenment and all these things, we quite naturally tend to focus upon the joy and the peace, the imperturbable peace, the causeless joy, a joy found just in being itself, a quality of awareness. It would seem joyful, playful. I never trust a spiritual teacher who's too dour. If they don't smile occasionally, I find this unsettling. And in focusing on the joy, in focusing on the peace, in focusing on the unconditional love, what tends to happen quite naturally is that that which is not peace or not joy or not unconditionally loving gets made bad. The mind tends to split things into two, and we see one set of qualities as spiritual and one as not. And this can be problematic because we set up a way to suffer. We create a standard, a wrongness. And my experience of reality is not 100% joy and peace an unconditionally loving presence. In fact, my experience of awakening is that the more that unfolds, the more the darkness has to have the light shone upon it. And the more those patterns that need to be seen and held and loved insist upon being seen and being loved. And so the invitation here is to reflect upon our humanity, upon our pain, upon our limitation, upon our imperfection, as we might perceive it, and to find the divinity there, to find the perfection in our imperfections. There's a quote from a gentleman called Carl Jung that enlightenment is not about chasing figures of light, but bringing into the light all that was unconscious. I think I butchered that slightly, but you get the gist. It was to bring into the light of awareness all that is required to be brought into the light of awareness, into the loving presence of our seeing, of our being. And how do we know if it needs to be brought into the light of awareness? Well, it's very simple, isn't it? If it's here, it needs to be brought into the light of awareness. If we're experiencing something, it's part of the course, it's part of the curriculum, it's required. And so to give you an example of what I'm speaking of here, I'm more comfortable with my being when it's effulgent joy than when I'm processing some past pain or some pain of the collective, who knows where it comes from. I'm more comfortable when I'm radiating effulgent joy. I can love and accept that guy very easily. There's not much challenge in that. He's kind of lovable. But when there is contraction or some blockage in my system, when there is pain, when I'm perhaps not able to show up with the fullness of the presence that I would like to offer, this is less easy to love. Less easy to love. Particularly doing this sort of work. Because my idea of being able to do this sort of work is a strange word to use perhaps. My perspective upon doing this vocation, sharing with groups, exploring truth with groups, is that what is most ideal is for this being to somehow combine, let's say, Buddha and Jesus all the time. That would be kind of nice, wouldn't it? If I could show up in every single moment as a combination of sort of two ascended masters, the best of each, and the cashier at the gas station, as well as conversations with family and certainly gatherings such as this. And you can imagine this can be a little problematic. I quite often fall short. So, what I've learned and continue to learn is to meet that which needs to be met with this loving presence, to find the divinity in my humanity. Not to try and eradicate my humanity, not to make it wrong, not to push it away, or even to heal it or integrate it or transmute it, but to actually see the divinity in it. So if I am looking to heal my pain, or integrate my pain, or transmute my pain, these can all be wonderful things and useful pointers and powerful pointers, and I'm not saying that they're wrong. But often in that movement to heal or to integrate or to transmute or to witness or to presence, there is a making it wrong, a little underlying tone of I am not okay. I'm okay when the joy is flowing, but when this difficulty is present or this contraction in the heart center is present, there's something wrong with this. And of course, love would make nothing wrong. And so the practice I found that works for me is to literally see the divinity in this aspect of my humanity. And let me give you an example. So, there's a heavy contraction in my heart center that I've been working with for going on 15 years now. So the transmuting, the healing, the integrating, the going to the jungles of Peru, the working with A Course in Miracles in some great depth, and the tens of thousands of hours, or maybe not, maybe 8,000 hours, 9,000 hours of meditation and yoga and qigong and the psychotherapy and the simply being with, presencing, witnessing, the work, the inquiry, the loving, this contraction, this heaviness has been fairly extensive. Fairly extensive. And I had an experience just recently when I noticed that in the presencing, in the being with, there was a trace of pushing it away. And you know when a mum gives, or a father gives true presence, allows a child to be there, the difference between that and giving 99% of presence, when there's that underlying irritation, or you shouldn't really be here, you know the child picks it up, right? They pick up on that. And it's the same with our inner child, we could say. It's the same with our inner being, our humanity. And it's one thing to know the theory. It's one thing to teach the theory. It's a whole nother to live it in each moment and with each part of our being. And so in this experience, I chose to change my perspective. Again, you may have noticed this, it takes more than once. Or maybe you were lucky and 20 years ago you changed your perspective and boom, it's been plain sailing since. I've had to do it a few times. Today. And I saw God's infinite love in this heavy contraction on my chest and my heart center. Recognized that it was, so this was not an overlay, it wasn't a positive thinking, but that can be a useful way in perhaps. This was just sitting with, it emerged. Wow, this that I have made wrong and sought to heal and transmute, because it kind of feels uncomfortable, that conditioning towards the pushing away of the discomfort, that strong conditioning to move in a certain direction and move away from that which is dark or gnarly or a little bit unknown. And in the seeing that this was God's infinite love, it was realized that this that I had moved away from the entire time was but God's infinite love. Now, if you're hoping this story ends with, and I've never felt any pain since, you're going to be disappointed. I felt a lot more pain since. God, as it were, noticed that I'm listening a little bit more carefully, it seems. So is gifting me with more opportunity to meet this discomfort and see it clearly, to have clear perception, to have clarity, to see that this is God's infinite love, to see that this too is God's infinite love. And even if we just hold that idea intellectually, that all is love, that all that we are is love, that all that is love, this can be a practice by which we come to more fully realize this, that there is only God's infinite love. And if we want to see that there is only God's infinite love, we might want that someone sort that out for us, that they, give us some bifocals or some sort of device that would allow us to see clearly. And yet, there are some quite cool looking shades in the room here, but I don't think there is a device available that facilitates that yet. Who knows? For now, we have to choose to see it ourselves. We have to be willing to see it ourselves. We have to be open to the possibility. We have to be open to the miracle. And life in its infinite generosity, we might hope, will give us further opportunities, to further challenges to make this choice. To see clearly, to choose to see love. To choose to see love. And this can be a practice with people we encounter, but what I'm most interested in, I think there's actually an equal split. What I'm also interested in is allowing all that I am, every single last bit of it, every memory, every echo of a pain, every discomfort, every error, every mistake, the whole lot, to see it in the light of God's infinite love, to see it as love, to see it in A Course terms as an invitation to love, to bring this loving presence, this loving awareness to the entire being, to my entire being, seeing the divinity in this humanity and collapsing that division between the divine and the human. Setting them apart no more. No God up there and us sinners down here, but rather just God. And if there's just God, if there's just love, then there can be nothing apart from it, including the heavy denseness in my chest, including however the cashier at the petrol station communicates, including whatever I got up to when I was 14 years old. Quite a lot, by the way. So it's really very simple. It's to be bold enough, courageous enough. This word courageous comes from the French coeur is heart. It's to be from the heart, to come from the heart, to be courageous enough, to be heartful enough, to see love, to perceive love, to invite the miracle in. Not to wait for the bifocals that allow it to happen for you, but to choose in the moment to see this as love, whatever this is. So, I have a slight, very mild ache in my head. And many of you are aware that a while back I had a diagnosis of a brain tumor. So I have a particular interest in feelings in my head. It's a sensitivity. So right here, right now, with this as an example, can I perceive this as love? Can I see this as love? Can I see this as God's love? Can I transform even ideas of death into God's love? Can I see through the idea of death and perceive in that scary place of an apparent end, can I correct my perception here too and see God's love? Can I see love in the apparent end of being, as the mind would tell us death is? Can I bring the light of love, the perspective of love, onto whatever darkness, whatever confusion that might show up? And simple as that, allow our being to be seen as it is, in its divinity, in its wholeness, in its perfection. And in this way we can experience multiple miracles a day. I quite like that expression. Multiple miracles a day. That could be part of your marketing, Stephen. You could have a sign out the front. And of course this must include our failures to see God, to see love. And we've got to be careful not to create another little loop by which we would make ourselves wrong. Oh, I didn't have multiple miracles today. Was I not listening to what that guy said? You can have multiple miracles in a day. I haven't had one. So we meet ourselves lovingly wherever we are. We meet ourselves wherever we are. Saying yes to our humanity as it is, we see ourselves as God sees us, we could say.